What if a single moment on the global stage flipped the balance of world power? When Donald Trump tried to corner India in front of the entire international community, no one expected what happened next. Not the diplomats, not the journalists, not even the US officials standing beside him. Because in the silence that followed, Jaishankar delivered a reply that froze the room. And Sundar Pichai's unexpected move left world leaders stunned. This is the story of a political gamble, a shocking response, and a twist the world never saw coming. Stay with me till the end to witness the moment that changed everything. The studio lights hummed softly as Piers Morgan leaned forward in his chair. A faint vibration ran through the floor, as if the world outside held its breath. He adjusted his papers, but his fingers trembled slightly. He felt an unusual warmth in the room, like the air itself had thickened. Across from him sat Dr. Arav Malhotra, a quiet Indian scientist with sharp eyes that reflected a calm intensity. There was something unsettling about the way he waited, perfectly still, as if he carried knowledge too heavy for the room. Piers cleared his throat. He sensed a strange tension rising inside his chest. The audience behind the glass window watched in absolute silence. Dr. Malhotra, Piers began, the world is talking about a breakthrough in India's nuclear program. Something that no country expected. Something no one believed was possible. The scientist did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the ceiling lights, as if listening for something beyond human hearing. Piers felt a cold shiver crawl up his spine. The room darkened for a moment as a cloud passed over the studio's skylight. A low rumble of distant thunder echoed through the walls. Dr. Malhotra finally spoke, but his voice was soft, almost too soft for the microphones. America believed that it understood the limits of nuclear energy. But the limits were never real. They were only assumptions. Piers felt the hair on his arms stand straight. His heartbeat grew louder, thudding in his ears. Dr. Malhotra reached into his briefcase and placed a small metallic capsule on the table. Its surface emitted a faint, pulsing glow. The glow seemed to breathe, expanding and shrinking like a living heartbeat. Piers leaned closer, drawn by a strange pull he did not understand. The capsule gave off a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through his bones. His throat tightened and a rush of heat flushed through his face. "What is that?" Piers whispered, even though he already sensed it was something no human eye was meant to witness. Dr. Malhotra folded his hands calmly. "It is a fragment of the new energy core. A core that exists in a state beyond conventional nuclear reactions." Piers felt the room tilt slightly, as though gravity had shifted. The audience behind the glass gasped, their reflections flickering wildly on the studio window. Before Piers could ask another question, the capsule brightened. The hum deepened. A strange pressure gripped the air, pushing against his chest. Dr. Malhotra's voice grew quieter, but its weight increased, sinking into the room like a stone into deep water. This technology was not meant to shock America. It was meant to prepare the world. Because the real revelation is not the power itself. The lights flickered again, and Piers felt his vision blur at the edges. His fingertips tingled as if electricity flowed beneath his skin. "The real revelation," Dr. Malhotra continued, "is what activated this core in the first place." Piers blinked rapidly, trying to steady his breathing as an overwhelming sense of discomfort swept through him. Something unseen moved in the air, an almost imperceptible shift, like the silent flap of a giant wing. The capsule pulsed brighter. The room temperature dropped sharply, freezing the air against Piers's skin. Every instinct inside him screamed that something unimaginable was about to happen. And then Dr. Malhotra leaned forward, his voice dropping to an unsettling whisper that sliced through the silence. "It began the moment we discovered what lies beneath. The crust of the Indian Ocean." Piers felt his breath catch in his throat. A hollow ringing filled his ears, as if the studio had been swallowed by a vast, empty chamber. The lights above trembled, casting thin, nervous shadows across the table. Dr. Malhotra kept his gaze fixed on the glowing capsule, his expression unreadable. "The world believes that nuclear power comes from controlled chaos," he said. "But this core is different. It is not born from chaos. It is born from something ancient." A chill wrapped itself around Piers's spine. He tried to shift in his seat, but the air felt heavier with every passing second. His fingertips prickled, as if tiny sparks danced beneath his skin. "What do you mean, ancient?" Piers asked, though every instinct urged him not to hear the answer. Dr. Malhotra's eyes glinted with a quiet intensity. "When our researchers scanned beneath the Indian Ocean," he said, "we found a structure." His voice wavered slightly, almost as if recalling a memory that disturbed him. "A colossal structure. Metallic, dormant, unmapped by any government or satellite." The studio murmured with uneasy whispers. The producers behind the glass exchanged urgent glances, their faces pale under the dimming lights. Piers swallowed hard. He felt a drop of sweat run down his back, even though the room had grown icy cold. His pulse pounded against his ribs. "A structure," he repeated. "A man-made one." Dr. Malhotra slowly shook his head. "Not man-made." His voice lingered in the air, heavy and deliberate. "Not from any civilization we know." Piers's mouth went dry. His heart thudded violently. A metallic taste spread across his tongue as the capsule's hum deepened to a resonant vibration that filled his entire skull. "What exactly did India find?" Piers whispered. Dr. Malhotra lifted his gaze toward him, and for the first time, there was fear behind his calm facade. "We found an energy source embedded within that structure. A chamber filled with particles that do not align with any known physics." The capsule brightened suddenly. A sharp crack echoed through the studio speakers. The floor beneath them trembled, just lightly, but enough to jolt the audience. Piers gripped the edge of his desk. His breathing quickened. His chest tightened as if an invisible hand pressed firmly against it. "What you are seeing on this table," Dr. Malhotra said, nodding toward the glowing core, "is only a fragment. We extracted it with extreme caution." Piers felt a fresh wave of discomfort surge through his body. His vision dimmed for a moment, and the world around him seemed to warp, bending at the edges like heated metal. "Why reveal this now?" he asked, struggling to keep his voice steady. Dr. Malhotra hesitated. His fingers tightened around each other. "This core began to react on its own last month. It sent out a signal." The word signal hung in the air like a blade. The audience fell completely silent. No one dared move. Piers felt a deep, unsettling pressure in his ears, as if the room had dropped thousands of feet in an instant. His stomach twisted. His skin tingled. "A signal to whom?" he whispered. Dr. Malhotra inhaled slowly, as though the next words carried unbearable weight. "We do not know who or what received it," he said. "All we know is that something responded." The lights dimmed further. A low, distant hum, different from the capsule, vibrated through the walls. Piers's heartbeat slammed against his ribs so hard it almost hurt. His palms grew slick with sweat. "What do you mean something responded?" Piers asked, his voice cracking with growing fear. Dr. Malhotra looked toward the studio ceiling as the strange vibration thickened, like a massive engine awakening far beneath the earth. "It means," he said, his voice barely audible, "that this core is not only a power source." He turned his gaze back to Piers, his expression tight with dread. "It is a beacon." The capsule flared, flooding the room with a cold white light. The shadows warped. The air constricted around them. Piers felt his entire body stiffen as a sound, low, ancient, and impossibly vast, echoed somewhere beyond the studio walls. "And whatever created it," Dr. Malhotra whispered, "is no longer silent." The hum deepened again. The studio floor vibrated harder. A hairline crack appeared across the glass window separating the stage from the control room. Piers stared at it with wide, trembling eyes. A cold spike of terror shot through him. His throat tightened until he struggled to breathe. "What is happening right now?" he asked. But his voice sounded distant, swallowed by the rising vibration around him. Dr. Malhotra opened his mouth to answer. And then the capsule shuddered violently, sending a shockwave of blinding light across the studio as every camera, every monitor, and every light in the room flickered wildly. Just before something beyond the walls began to move. The movement was subtle at first, like a distant tremor crawling through the bones of the building. But the tremor grew, thickened. It pressed into the air until every breath felt sharp and metallic. Piers froze in place. His chest rose and fell in short, frantic bursts. The glow from the capsule cast long, distorted shadows across his face, turning the studio into a trembling landscape of light and darkness. Dr. Malhotra stood slowly, as if the weight of the entire room fought against him. His eyes widened with a mix of awe and dread. He looked toward the studio exit, but the lights above him flickered again, trapping everyone in the same suffocating uncertainty. A deep groan echoed through the walls. Sounded like steel twisting under extreme pressure. The kind of sound that made the human body instinctively recoil. "What is that sound?" Piers whispered, though his voice shook so violently that the words barely held shape. Dr. Malhotra's gaze shifted back to the capsule. Its glow throbbed faster, beating like a frantic heart stripped of flesh. "That sound," he said quietly, "is the response. It is the first contact." Piers felt the floor vibrate beneath his shoes. A cold shock shot through his knees. The audience behind the cracked glass pressed back against the wall, their faces ghostly pale under the pulsating light. Another groan reverberated, deeper this time. It crawled through the studio floor and up into Piers's spine. His fingertips tingled with a numb chill, as if the very air had turned electric. "Doctor," Piers said with a strained gasp, "something is coming from under the ground." Dr. Malhotra nodded slowly. His voice grew softer but heavier, weighed down by something ancient. "It is not coming from underground," he said. "It is coming from below the energy spectrum itself. From a place far older than the Earth." Piers could not speak. His throat tightened like an invisible coil had wrapped around it. The lights above suddenly went dark. A single emergency lamp flickered on, casting a sickly yellow glow across the room. The shadows stretched across the walls like long, bending limbs. Another vibration pulsed through the building. This time, the crack in the glass widened with a sharp, tearing sound. A web of fractures spread outward from its center. Piers stumbled back, gripping the edge of the desk. His vision wavered. For a moment, the capsule appeared to expand, as if inhaling. The room filled with a low resonance that rattled his teeth. Dr. Malhotra stepped closer to the glowing core. His voice trembled for the first time. "When the signal was returned," he said, "our sensors detected something else. A frequency that does not exist in nature. A frequency that vibrates between known particles." The resonance intensified. The ground shook harder. A ceiling tile fell somewhere off camera, shattering on the studio floor. Piers's heart hammered inside his chest, nearly painful now. He swallowed, trying to keep from choking on the heavy air. "Doctor," he said, voice cracking, "what does this frequency do?" Dr. Malhotra lifted his eyes toward him, and the fear in them was unmistakable. "It searches," he said. "It scans. It identifies every conscious mind in the radius." Piers felt a sudden pressure inside his skull, like invisible fingers tightening around his thoughts. The temperature dropped again. A cold mist began to form near the capsule, curling along the table edge and drifting toward the ground like pale smoke. The control room behind the glass went dark. Only silhouettes remained, still, quiet, and disturbingly motionless. Piers stared at them, his breath slowing in terror. "They are not moving," he whispered. Dr. Malhotra did not turn to look. His gaze remained fixed on the trembling capsule. "It has begun to read them," he said. "That is the first stage." "Read them," Piers repeated, his voice barely rising above a whisper. Dr. Malhotra nodded. It is mapping every human mind within reach. Another wave of resonance swept through the studio. The sound grew louder, now layered with a faint rhythmic pulse, almost like a distant chant echoing from a vast cavern. Piers pressed his palms against his ears, but the sound pushed straight through his skull. A piercing tension built behind his eyes. His knees buckled, and he fought to stay standing. What happens after it maps us? He forced out. What comes next? Dr. Malhotra opened his mouth to answer, but the building shook violently, cutting him off. The capsule erupted with a flash of white light so bright it burned the edges of the shadows away. A ring of energy expanded outward, shaking the walls, rattling the lights, and knocking cameras to the ground. Piers threw his arms over his face. The heat seared against his skin. Behind the blinding glow, a shape began to form within the capsule. A dark silhouette. Low. Rising. Unfolding. The resonance deepened to a frequency that vibrated through every bone in his body. Dr. Malhotra stepped back with a sharp gasp. His voice quivered as he uttered the last words Piers expected to hear. It is not the structure that is responding now. It is the thing that built it. The silhouette grew clearer. The walls trembled. The studio air pulsed with unnatural force. And something ancient began to step out of the light. You said. The light around the silhouette thickened, swirling like liquid metal pulled by an unseen gravity. The figure inside shifted, slow and deliberate, as if awakening from a sleep that lasted longer than human history itself. Piers felt his knees weaken. His breath trembled in his chest. The heat from the capsule vanished, replaced by a sudden and painful cold that seeped into his bones. The studio temperature plunged so sharply that his breath came out as a thin white mist. Dr. Malhotra staggered backward. His eyes locked on the dark form emerging from the brilliance. His voice cracked with raw terror. This should not be happening. It was not supposed to wake in this atmosphere. The words sent a spike of dread through Piers's stomach. His vision flickered, fading in and out with the pulsing light. He pressed a hand against the trembling desk to steady himself. The silhouette took another step. Long, fluid, too smooth and too controlled for any biological being. When the light thinned around it, the shape became clearer. It was tall, taller than any human. Its limbs elongated, yet perfectly balanced, like an engineered sculpture designed with alien precision. A faint sheen covered its form, reflecting the emergency lamp in distorted ripples. Its surface looked metallic but alive, as if it were breathing through the shifting patterns on its skin. Piers felt every hair on his body stand. A sharp ringing filled his ears and grew louder each time the creature moved. His heart pounded so violently that he feared it would burst. "What is it?" he whispered through chattering teeth. Dr. Malhotra did not answer immediately. His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. His voice came out weak, trembling under the weight of ancient truth. "It is a sentient construct. The chamber beneath the ocean did not store energy. It stored this." The being's head tilted toward Piers. A faint glow shimmered where its eyes should have been. No pupils, just shifting light that changed color with each pulse of the room. The glow washed over Piers's face, and a cold wave surged through his skull. His thoughts stuttered. His memories flickered like dying bulbs. He felt something probing. Not physically, deeper. Inside his mind. Piers gasped and clutched the sides of his head. The pressure intensified, squeezing the edges of his consciousness. He stumbled backward, breath cutting short as if the air had been drained from his lungs. "Doctor," Piers struggled to speak. "It is inside my thoughts." Dr. Malhotra rushed to him, gripping his arm tightly. "It is scanning you. It is assessing your neural patterns. Do not fight it. It will only push harder." Piers felt cold beads of sweat roll down his temple as the probing sensation deepened. Images flashed across his mind. Memories, fears, fragments of his childhood, the darkest corners of his subconscious, pulled out without his permission. His chest tightened. His vision blurred. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the pressure vanished. He collapsed against the desk, gasping. The being turned toward Dr. Malhotra next. Its glowing eyes brightened, and the entire studio rumbled in response. Dr. Malhotra stood frozen. His breath hitched. His hands trembled. He whispered softly, almost reverently, "It is communicating." The being raised an elongated, shimmering arm. The motion was calm, almost gentle, but the air shook with every inch it moved. The capsule behind it shattered, exploding into a cloud of radiant dust that swirled like stars torn from a galaxy. The dust drifted through the studio, gathering around the creature like a gravitational halo. It pulsed, forming symbols, floating shapes that rearranged themselves in the air. Piers stared in disbelief. What does that mean? Dr. Malhotra's eyes widened as he watched the symbols shift, combine, and glow brighter. It is giving a message. It is telling us why it woke. Another tremor rocked the studio. Loose cables swung from the ceiling. The cracked glass wall groaned under the pressure. The being stepped closer. Its voice emerged not through sound but directly into their minds. Each word was a vibration, resonating deep inside their skulls. The message was simple, direct, heavy with cosmic authority. The signal has been accepted. You are no longer alone. Piers felt a cold shock ripple through him. His pulse raced. His breath became shallow and uneven. Dr. Malhotra's face went pale. His eyes filled with horror. The signal did not just wake this one. It alerted the others. Piers stumbled backward. His legs felt numb, as if gravity itself had changed. "The others?" he asked, voice breaking. "How many are there?" The being lifted its head toward the ceiling as if listening to something miles above. The studio lights flickered. The ground rattled. Outside the building, a deep sound, like the sky itself tearing open, echoed across the horizon. Dr. Malhotra stared upward. His voice barely more than a breath. "If the chamber under the ocean was only one beacon, then the rest of them are waking now." The being's eyes flared brighter. The resonance deepened until the entire studio shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. Equipment toppled over. The floor vibrated like a drum hit by a colossal force. Piers pressed his back against the wall, terror surging through every nerve in his body. "Doctor," he said in a shaking whisper, "what happens when all of them wake?" Dr. Malhotra turned to him slowly. His expression filled with dread. His voice hollow. "It means the ones who built them are returning." The building groaned. A roaring vibration thundered from somewhere far above, shaking the air itself. The creature stepped forward, and the lights went out. The darkness fell so abruptly that Piers felt as if someone had torn the entire world away from around him. Only the faint, shifting glow of the being remained, illuminating the studio in thin, trembling waves of silver and cold white light. The air thickened. A heavy pressure settled over the room, pushing against every breath, every thought. Piers could barely draw air into his lungs. His chest tightened as if invisible cords wrapped around it. He blinked rapidly, trying to force his eyes to adjust, but the darkness around the creature seemed alive, moving, stretching, pulsing with each vibration that rattled through the floor. Dr. Malhotra stood rigid, his silhouette trembling in the dim light. He opened his mouth to speak, but the studio ceiling groaned again, louder this time. The sound ripped through the air like a warning from something ancient and buried. A small shower of dust fell over them, drifting like ash. The creature lifted its head. Its glowing eyes flickered with sudden intensity, brightening until the shadows recoiled away from it. Piers pressed himself tighter against the wall. His skin prickled. His heartbeat thundered in his ears, drowning out every other sound. "Doctor," he whispered, voice strained. "It is reacting to something. Something outside the building." Dr. Malhotra stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he watched the creature tilt its head again. "It hears them," he murmured. "It hears the others." At that moment, a deep, distant resonance rolled across the city. It was not thunder. It was not an explosion. It was a layered, pulsating sound that seemed to rise from the ground and descend from the sky at the same time. The studio walls trembled violently. Several light fixtures swung overhead, creaking as if they were about to snap. Piers felt another surge of icy fear. He steadied himself and pushed forward through the air that now felt thick like gel. "What do you mean the others? How many are there?" Dr. Malhotra wiped dust from his glasses, his hands shaking. The chamber under the ocean was one of many. We detected 7 anomalies, each located in different tectonic zones. If this beacon is awake. His voice drifted off as another wave of resonance hit the building, stronger this time. The floor shuddered beneath their feet. Then the others will follow. The creature's body expanded slightly, its surface rippling as if adjusting to a new presence. Then the symbols around it, those floating luminous shapes, reformed in the air. They spun faster, creating a vortex of shifting light. Piers shielded his eyes. The symbols pulsed, brightened, aligned into a single massive sigil that burned into the darkness. "What is it showing us?" Piers whispered. Dr. Malhotra squinted at the glowing formation. He inhaled sharply. His voice trembled with awe and fear intertwined. "It is not a symbol," he said. "It is a map." The sigil shifted and stretched, turning into a projection of the earth, framed in shimmering silver lines. 7 points glowed across the globe. 7 anchors, 7 beacons. 1 in the ocean, 1 near the Himalayas, 1 in the South Pacific, 1 in the Arctic shelf, and others scattered in places untouched by modern eyes. Piers felt the blood drain from his face. His fingertips turned cold. His throat tightened again with the weight of what he was witnessing. The being reached out toward the glowing Earth projection. As its hand approached the image, each beacon pulsed with brilliant light, like responses, like echoes, like calls being answered. Then all at once the building lurched. A shockwave shook the studio, knocking Piers to his knees. A monitor crashed from its mount, sparks erupting briefly in the darkness. The glowing map shattered into fragments of bright dust, scattering like dying stars. Piers gasped for breath, pushing himself upright with trembling arms. "What does this mean?" he demanded. "What are these beacons preparing for?" Dr. Malhotra stared at the creature, sweat dripping down his temples. His voice trembled as he spoke. "They are gateways, not doors or portals in the way we understand. They are stabilization points, for something large enough to require the entire planet to brace for its arrival." Piers's pulse hit a painful rhythm. He struggled to swallow as panic tightened his throat. "You are telling me something is coming to Earth?" The creature answered before Dr. Malhotra could. Its voice entered their minds again, stronger this time, colder, deeper. "The architects return, and your world stands unprepared." A deafening crack split the air. The floor beneath them trembled so violently that cameras toppled, metal supports bent, and the studio door slammed open with a force that echoed like a gunshot. A gust of wind, icy, powerful, unnatural, rushed into the studio, swirling around them. The air pressure dropped so fast that Piers's ears ached sharply. From somewhere high above, far beyond the studio ceiling, a roar erupted. It was not an aircraft, not thunder, not anything human. It was colossal, resonant, and growing louder. Dr. Malhotra's face drained of all color. He whispered hoarsely, barely audible over the roaring sky outside. "It has begun. The sky is answering the signal." The creature stepped forward as the walls groaned, bending under an unseen force. And something massive descended through the clouds above. Here is a graceful, cinematic, and powerful ending section that closes the story without feeling rushed, while preserving the suspense and emotion of everything that came before. The roaring sky grew louder. The building trembled beneath the weight of something vast moving above the clouds. Piers clung to the edge of the desk, steadying himself as a fierce gust of wind surged through the broken doorway, scattering papers and dust across the dark studio. Dr. Malhotra shielded his eyes, his voice shaking. "It is here. The first arrival." The creature in the studio stepped closer to Piers and Malhotra. Its glowing eyes dimmed, becoming softer, almost human in their quiet intensity. The rippling patterns on its metallic skin slowed, settling into calm waves. Then the voice returned, gentler now, resonating inside their minds. "Fear does not serve you. Your world will not be erased. It will be tested." Piers felt a weight lift from his chest. The crushing pressure in the air eased, replaced by a strange sense of stillness. Outside, the thunderous roar softened into a low hum, as though whatever had descended was hovering, waiting. Dr. Malhotra stepped forward, courage steadying his voice. "What happens now?" The creature turned its luminous gaze toward him. The air around it glowed in a slow pulse, like a heartbeat shared with the world itself. "The architects will judge your readiness for the energy you have awakened. Your planet stands on the edge of a threshold. Cross wisely." The studio lights flickered back to life, soft, warm, almost comforting. The trembling stopped. The crack in the glass wall ceased expanding. The world felt still. For a moment time seemed to pause. Even the dust in the air hung motionless. Then the creature stepped back toward the fading glow of the broken capsule. Its form began to blur, dissolving into threads of silver light. The threads swirled upward, merging into a single beam that shot through the ceiling without leaving a single mark. The roar from the sky faded. The pressure lifted completely. Silence settled over the studio. Deep, fragile, almost sacred. Piers looked at Dr. Malhotra, breath shaky, voice barely a whisper. "Is it over?" Dr. Malhotra stared upward, tears glistening in the corners of his eyes. His voice was soft, filled with both awe and fear. "For now. But the Earth has been noticed, and the next move is ours." Piers let out a long, trembling breath. The cameras around him lay toppled. Lights dangled from broken mounts. The world outside remained still. He stepped forward, feeling the weight of what had just unfolded settle deep in his bones. "We have to tell them," he said. "All of them. The world needs to know what is coming." Dr. Malhotra nodded slowly. "Then we begin a new chapter. Not in fear, but in preparation." Piers looked out through the cracked studio window at the quiet, trembling horizon. The sky was calm, too calm, carrying the faint echo of the force that had descended moments earlier. For the first time he understood the truth. Humanity was no longer alone. And the future would never be the same again. The studio lights steadied. The silence held. And the world waited. What if a single moment on the global stage flipped the balance of world power? When Donald Trump tried to corner India in front of the entire international community, no one expected what happened next. Not the diplomats, not the journalists, not even the US officials standing beside him. Because in the silence that followed, Jaishankar delivered a reply that froze the room. And Sundar Pichai's unexpected move left world leaders stunned. This is the story of a political gamble, a shocking response, and a twist the world never saw coming. Stay with me till the end to witness the moment that changed everything.